All right, what's up, everybody? We got Ben from WODPrep, as most people know Ben. Ben, the crazy thing is, I've known you now for 4 years, and I still don't know how to pronounce your last name.
That's okay. Neither do I. And I've known myself for 20 or 30 years now. Um, so we pronounce it Jawalski in Maryland, but I think in Poland, technically it's Zawolski or Jawolski. But yeah, just Ben from WODPrep is fine.
Okay.
And maybe you don't recognize me because I'm not wearing my WODPrep shirt. They're all at WODPrep headquarters, which is about 10 minutes up the road. But anyway, I'm really happy to be here, man.
Yeah, so backstory, I've known Ben now for 4 years, worked for you for 3 years, and really that was really my first exposure to like true remote work. And I thought it would be good for us to hop on a call because a majority of people are working remotely now, and they had no experience prior to this in working remotely. And based on conversations that I've had, people have had a tough time making that switch. A lot of their routines have been thrown off completely. Maybe they're staying up later, sleeping later,
Sure.
habits have changed, and they're kind of just dropping the ball on other things. And so the whole point of this is we're trying to, at the end of the day, help people with their fitness. But to get there, all these other obstacles have to be cleared. And so we're trying to remove as many obstacles in their day as possible so they can get to a point to where they can work out because, now maybe they have managed their time better, or maybe they did structure their day, their remote work better. So now they can, go and work out. So that's kind of really the vision behind why we're even on the call. But you own a very successful online business. You've got members, or you've got team members all over the world, really. And so maybe tell some of the story. One, what is WODPrep, and then kind of how it all began, hang-ups, and all that good stuff.
Sure. Yeah. So WODPrep started because I needed to actually sell my CrossFit gym. I used to own a CrossFit gym in Maryland. It was called Blue Crab CrossFit. It still exists today. In fact, they've expanded to 2 locations. But I sold it when I got engaged and then married to my now wife. And she is in the U.S. Navy. So basically, wherever she goes, I follow. And that has taken me from Maryland to Florida, from Florida to San Diego, California, and then from California to Japan. And that's where Trace and I met, or met as in I was, on the internet in Japan and he was on the internet in Alabama. And then he started working with WODPrep, and I'll talk a little bit about what WODPrep is. And then I moved from Japan. Now I'm in Colorado, where it, snowed a foot outside on April 17th. Yeah, so you can actually see we got fresh snow outside, which you probably don't have in Alabama.
We don't even know what snow is.
So anyway, WODPrep basically is after running my CrossFit gym, I realized that, I love CrossFit gyms. I love everything that the gym owner and its coaches do for the members. But if there's one thing that I remember as both an athlete and a coach is there's a lot of members that have individual goals. So for everyone watching this, I'm sure some of you are like, I want to learn double unders. I hate those things. Some of you are like, if only I could do an overhead squat with a barbell. Some people maybe, I really, really think I can get a muscle up, one of these days. So all of these individual goals, it's hard to meet those goals when you're just following the normal programming, because as CrossFit Wotown does, it's important that you program for the general public to help them get fit and healthy, which is great. And that's what we want. But there's a lot of skills involved in CrossFit that a lot of people want to learn. And that's where WODPrep comes in. So I started WODPrep to help people basically learn those individual skills so that they can become basically a more proficient CrossFitter. So we teach the CrossFit skills. So you come learn from WODPrep, and then you can come back to your gym and say, hey, look at me, I can do double unders unbroken now, or I can do a muscle up. And the goal is for us to integrate with the CrossFit affiliate, where you're getting your normal daily programming, you're going in and hitting your WOD for the day, and then we kind of give you that little cherry on top, that accessory programming that teaches you step by step how to get and unlock those skills. So that's what WODPrep is, and that's why it started. Was I sold my gym, I was like, I don't really think I'm employable. I don't think I can ever work for someone else. So I'm gonna come up with my own thing, and ended up starting just teaching online, and then that developed into WODPrep.
Yeah, so you instantly went to So with the teaching online, so now you got to figure out like, okay, I'm not going to a gym. I don't have quote unquote office hours anymore. So now you're like purely motivated on your own, not only to bring in an income, but to see the stuff done, to manage your teams. And that's probably where a lot of people find themselves like right now.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe talk about initially some of the hangups you had with working remotely.
So good story. When we moved so WODPrep was kind of born in Florida, Pensacola, Florida, when my wife was in flight school for becoming a helicopter pilot. And she eventually became one, and we moved to San Diego. When we moved to San Diego, I was still like playing around with the idea of like, how is WODPrep going to be an act? Like, I basically was building the business model. And upon building the business model and trying to brainstorm it all, I was working remotely, aka working from home, aka working from a couch, aka not getting up until like 11, 12. Like I was sleeping in all the way till noon, because that was the habits that I brought from college, which I graduated college probably 2 years earlier. But I still, because I didn't have that 6 a.m. class that I needed to coach, I was like, well, I might as well just sleep in. And then I would work till like 2 in the morning. And I specifically remember, like, my wife and I were newly married at the time, and we definitely had some conflicts there where she'd get home from work or like come home for lunch or whatever, and I'd be just getting out of bed, and she's like, "What are you doing? Like you have to. This can't happen." And it was almost depressing. I was like, "You have unlimited freedom with your time, and it's more stressful than it is when you have discipline and you have structure." So luckily, thankfully for us, we had a major event that kind of like caused me to shift my schedule, and that was us moving to Japan. So as soon as we moved to Japan, I kind of used that as this starting point, this basically this kick in the butt to, okay, I'm a new person now. We live in Japan. I'm going to be different. The time zone changed. There was jet lag. It was crazy. And I was naturally getting up kind of early in the morning. And I'm like, I'm not going to change this. And basically the whole time we were in Japan, including now, I went from being the guy who would sleep until noon to now I'm up and at it pretty darn early every single morning. And I can say without a doubt that has led to much more structure in my life, which makes me feel so much better and so much more productive. It makes me feel more productive, and it also actually makes me more productive. So the key there was basically adding more discipline into my life. And I know discipline is a hard word to swallow sometimes, but there's actually a book. Let's see. I don't know if I have a lot of books up here. Yep, here it is. Hold on one second. So this is a book. I used to read it every morning. It's called Discipline Equals Freedom, Field Manual by Jocko Willink. He's a Navy SEAL. Some of you might have heard of him. Some of you might have not. He's a pretty intimidating character. But anyway, in this book, it's kind of just like meditations almost. Like it's like very short essays. Like we're talking like half a page. And he just talks about how like this whole book is about like when you discipline yourself to follow just a couple guidelines and a couple rules, you will feel more free on the back end of it. And one of these rules that I implemented for myself was the fact that I will never ever hit the snooze button again. So in Japan, I actually bought an alarm clock. I started keeping the alarm clock outside of my bedroom. And when that alarm goes off, like the night before, it's very easy to like set your alarm. And you're like, oh, I'm going to get up tomorrow at 6 a.m. And then when 6 a.m. the next day rolls around, you're like, hey, let me sleep a little bit longer. So I decided to cut that out of my life. I just made a rule. No more snooze button. Doesn't exist for me. And sure enough, I've kept that train rolling for, several years now, where when I set my alarm the night before, I am making that intention where this is when I'm waking up. And if I'm not willing to wake up at that time, I better not set that alarm clock, or I better move it to a later time. So like this morning, I didn't set my alarm until I think it was like 7:30. It's not a crazy wake up time, but when like schedules are normal, my wake up time is oftentimes like 6 a.m. or, it's been as early as 4 a.m. for periods of time. But I know that when I set that alarm clock, I'm making that commitment. I'm following that discipline. And like he talks about in this book, when you add some discipline into your life and structure, all of a sudden you feel more free. It's almost counterintuitive to the way that works. So adding a little bit of discipline, even if it's just one thing, like my alarm is set at this time and I will get up, right? Like even if it's just that one thing, you're setting the snowball. Since we're in Denver, I'll say snowball. We're setting that ball in motion to accumulate lots of wins. If you win your morning and you win that first thing, which is that battle against the snooze button, a lot of times that's going to trickle down into the rest of your day.
Right. So what does like a typical day look like for you, just to give some perspective for people?
Yeah, so I mean, admittedly, I mean that is very flexible now because my wife is now working from home, which she
Right.
didn't. She was commuting every day, so a lot of my schedule has changed. But I will say this:
And it's
on a daily basis,
relevant too for now, like, because I think everybody's schedule's so
totally.
chaotic, you know.
Yeah.
So what does it kind of look like before and maybe now?
Yeah. So before it was, it really hasn't changed too much. It's just like the times have shifted. Rather than wake up at 5 in the morning or 4 in the morning, it's like, all right, I'll wake up at 7 now. It's not a big deal. As long as I'm up before my meetings, I'm kind of okay. But the things that I do both pre-COVID and COVID, and I will do after, is like I always plan my day before it starts. So when I say that, it's like I kind of live out of my Google Calendar, and Trace will admit to this. Like when he asked me to do this, I'm like, you need to send me an invite, or I was like, can you please send me an invite at ben@wodprep.com to Google Calendar. And basically, once I get it in my calendar, it like adds that structure for my day. So rather than just waking up whenever and saying, what am I going to do today? A lot of times that amount of freedom will leave you open to wasting time or having dead time or getting distracted and going down these long rabbit holes. So rather than do that, a simple practice that I put in, and I've been doing this for a few years now, is just the night before. So as I'm winding down my work day, I will set my schedule for the next day. So I'll be like, hey, I'm going to wake up at this time. I'm going to go to this meeting, and I'm going to spend an hour at around this time. I'm going to spend an hour reading this book. Like basically, I'm just adding structure to my day. And when you allocate your moments of your day, a lot of people will think that's like really constricting, but it's actually really freeing because you've done the things that you said you were going to do, and that just makes you feel so good about yourself. So you can actually schedule in, like, from 6 to 9 p.m., I'm going to veg out on the couch and watch Netflix. But because you have it in your schedule, the hours leading up to that, you're going to be less tempted to jump to that, right? You're like, oh no, I've set aside time where I can relax and hang out. So now I'm going to be productive, and I'm going to focus on these tasks that I've scheduled for my day.
Right. I don't know if you know who Donald Miller is, but
Oh yeah.
Story Brand.
Yep.
He has that planner, and something that I've been using that has been so great is just write down your rewards for the day, because you know that they're coming at some point in time, which will motivate you to keep doing the work that you're going to do. So I know, my reward today, I'm going to go for a walk with my daughter and my wife later, and I know it's going to happen today. So I can just work harder now, knowing that reward's coming. And so
Yep.
that was one thing that just kind of hit with me for sure.
Yeah, and I make all these, like, I have all these like weird personal rules that, and I'm sure drive my wife Shelby nuts. But like one of my rules is no snooze, right? Never hit the snooze button. Another rule is I cannot touch my phone and my bed at any time. It's like hot lava. Like I would immediately explode. That's what I tell myself. And it's funny, like I have not been in our bed at our house, whether it was in Japan or here now in Colorado. Like my phone is never in my pocket and in my bed, and I can't like touch the covers. It's literally like I'll go in to like make the bed. Maybe I'm the last one up in the morning, like this morning, and I have my phone in my pocket and I go to make the bed. And like before I touch it, my body's like, whoa, and then I take my phone out and I like put it somewhere else, and then I make my bed. And I know that's like crazy, but it's amazing what your mind will do when you like make rules for yourself that you don't break.
Yeah.
So another rule, and I practice this during the week, is no sweets, sips, or shows before 6. I know that's really weird, but it's like I never used to drink, but actually here in Denver, like I've started to enjoy like the craft beer scene. So
I could do a hipster.
Yeah, I'm going full. I don't have the beard yet. I don't have like the hipster stash like you got and this hipster
This
glasses,
is
but I'm
what
on my way
COVID
there.
does to me, man.
Yeah, so I could see that, like, especially since I'm my own boss, like I could have way too much flexibility there. So I was like, all right, no sips, no shows. So that means I can't like watch a Netflix show. I can't like watch my favorite John Oliver YouTube series, whatever. I can't like no shows of any sort unless it's like educational. That's gonna like unless it's like educational for my business. So no sips, no shows, and no sweets. This is the biggest one for me because the fridge, especially when you're working from home, the fridge is always stocked with something delicious, especially if you have other people with sweet tooths around, or if you yourself are a sweet tooth person like myself and my wife and I. So the no sweets is like, and she can attest to it, except for Sundays. If it's not 6 p.m. and there's like a delicious sweet there, I'm like, no, I'm not going to eat it. Right. Then at 6, I allow myself to eat it. Normally I try to eat a really big dinner and then, have some sweets. Generally every night I have a little bit, but just adding that structure makes it so that I'm not binging nearly as much. Like I'm not in the middle of the day, I'm not like, oh my gosh, I just ate a pint of ice cream, which that actually used to be a big problem for me. Or in the middle of the day, oh my gosh, I just watched 8 episodes of this Netflix series. Well, that's not a problem anymore because I've pushed it back to 6 p.m. There's only so much damage I can do from 6 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. when I start to wind down to go to bed. And generally, there's a lot of other stuff to do then too. So just adding that one rule into my life. I know it sounds silly, but it's actually been really freeing for me.
Oh, I love that one. I think I'm probably going to try to implement that one into my rules because I can get into Joe Rogan clips and just,
And the
oh my
rabbit
gosh,
hole
it's 2
continues.
hours later.
Yeah, yeah.
Dude, so and one other thing, one final thing, and we can wrap this up. But like you manage a pretty, like in my opinion, a pretty successful company. You've got people all over the world. Like when we decided to open our gym, Aaron and I talked to you because we value your business. What's the word? Fortitude, maybe. I don't know. Not good with words.
Sure.
But we value those things, right? And so, but you still, even when I was working with you, you would find time for fitness. So how does that work in your day?
Yeah, so I think it's really important to understand that like you shouldn't beat yourself up for not having your same schedule, right?
Right.
This is a different time period. This is the perfect time to develop a new habit or develop a new COVID-19 routine, right? Don't allow yourself to say, oh man, I used to work out. Like Shelby and I either would go to this 5 a.m. class or the 6 a.m. class. We're not doing that anymore. So it's really easy to be like, oh, like I'm such a failure. I'm not working out when I used to. I'm not going to class like I used to. Well, that's not right. You shouldn't beat yourself up for it. Instead, you should say, all right, things have changed. What can I do now? What can I control now? So maybe you don't have that accountability to do the 5 a.m. class or the 6 a.m. class or whatever, any class. So rather than beat yourself up for it, add it to your schedule. And if you just make that, like, identify the thing that you're struggling with most, and then like knock down that one domino. So it's great to like have all these rules and stuff like that, but you never would want to do all this stuff at once. Like it's common in the entrepreneur community specifically where it's like everyone's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be a morning person now. And it's like they wake up at 4 a.m. They meditate for an unbroken hour. They have a green smoothie and then they go for a 6-hour run and then they work for 12 hours. And it's just like, okay, like don't try to go from 0 to 100. So if you're struggling just to get your workout done for the day, like do me a favor and add it to your schedule, whether it's like a physical daily planner, whether it's Google Calendar, whether it's your calendar in your iPhone, add it to your calendar and say, I'm going to work out for this 30 minutes. Like you don't even have to make it a full hour. It doesn't even have to be a full blown CrossFit WOD. Just be like, I'm going to do this at this time. And I would start small. Everyone, especially lacking equipment, is just like, oh, like, I don't know what to do. I don't know, how to work out. It's just like, all right, here's one. Do 100 burpees as quickly as you can, right? For most people, that's going to take less than 10 minutes. And I know every single person watching this video has 10 minutes in their day. So if you can just check that box of, did I do an exercise? Did I do something difficult with my body today? Even if that was only 5 to 10 minutes, that is still way better than falling in that trough of, oh, I didn't do anything yesterday. And then that momentum is going to want to keep going. Oh, I didn't do anything today. Oh, I didn't do anything tomorrow. Just get up. Even if you're wearing your pajamas, do 100 burpees for time. I promise you, at the end of those 100 burpees, you're going to be like, wow, I did something today. And then the next day, you're going to be willing to do something. And then the next day, you're going to be willing to do something. This all kind of from Jerry Seinfeld is very like the theory of don't break the chain. Someone asked him, how did he get so good at being funny and writing jokes? And he replied, I don't break the chain. Every single day I try to come up, or every single day I write a new joke. I don't care if it's a good joke. I don't care if I'm never going to use it again. It could be horrible, but every single day I write a new joke, and then I make a big X on my calendar for that day. And his whole goal is like, once you see those like 2 or 3 X's in a row, just don't break the chain. And that's what he does. And I'd encourage for a lot of people during COVID-19, don't worry about like a workout being a full-blown CrossFit, warm-up, strength, Metcon, cool down, mobility work, right? It doesn't have to be that. It could literally be like, go for a light jog, go for a really brisk walk with a ruck on your back. Squat your children 100 times or do 100 burpees for time. You know, it's like, it can be these little tiny things, but just that little tiny bit of action causes you to not break the chain. You can just keep that ball rolling.
I love it, dude. I think that's where we can definitely end. Sticky statements, don't break the chain, new COVID-19 routine, and then Ben's 3 rules. No snooze, don't touch your phone in bed, no sweets, sips, or shows before 6 p.m.
There you go.
Yeah, I really do appreciate it. I'm going to see if I'm going to try to plug you one time. If you're trying to figure out double unders, he is the guy to teach you. I'm trying to remember it from memory because I typed it so many times on Facebook and YouTube. https://WODPrep.com/du.
Yeah. That'll get you to the free double under course.
Double under guide, and then from there, you should go ahead and just figure out how to do double unders. But I really do appreciate your time, man.
Thank you so much for having me, man.
All right. See you later, man.